Hello and welcome to News Central Television with me, Blessings Mosugu. The top stories at this hour. Reactions trail NNPCL's increase in petrol prices at filling stations nationwide as NLC rejects price hike. Governor Mutfwang assures residents of Plateau that their votes will count. Vote counting starts in Mozambique general election as opposition warns against fraud. We've got the details in a moment. Let's begin by telling you that the Nigeria Labour Congress has rejected the new increase in petrol pump prices, saying it will further deepen poverty in the country. In a statement, the NLC President JOHESU said it will further deepen poverty as production capacities dip and more jobs are lost with multi-dimensional negative effects. He urged the government to immediately reverse this rate hike as previous increases did not produce any good result. He adds that the Congress is dismayed by the latest increase in the pump price of petrol. Now, fuel prices have risen again at Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited, the NNPCL filling stations. In the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, the price has increased from 897 naira to 1,013 naira per litre, while in Lagos it has gone up from 885 naira to 998 naira per litre. The price increase follows reports that NNPC has pulled out of a deal to buy fuel from the Dangote refinery. At the time of filing this report, the NNPC spokesperson was unavailable to confirm the price rise. This is the second price hike in 2 months. Long queues have already formed at NNPC stations in Abuja and Lagos as motorists wait angrily to buy petrol. Joining us on the news now is News Central's correspondent, Joshua Imarai. Joshua, thank you so much for joining us. What exactly is the state of things over there in Abuja?
Well, as you can see, I am here in the area Abuja. Here in Abuja, as you can see behind me, there's a prolonged curfew of motorists.
Okay, and Joshua, has this affected the daily activities of the people in Abuja in any way? Joshua, can you hear me? Unfortunately, we've lost connections with Joshua. Hopefully, we can get him back to tell us what the update in the Federal Capital Territory is. But moving on to more stories, 16 Nigerian states, led by the Kogi State government, have taken the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, to the Supreme Court, challenging the constitutionality of the laws that established this agency. The states are contesting the EFCC's authority to investigate financial dealings within their territories. They argue that the EFCC Establishment Act goes against the Constitution, claiming that when the EFCC Act was enacted in 2004, the provisions of Section 12 of the 1999 Constitution were not followed. Now let's go back to Joshua and see if we've reestablished connections with him. Joshua, I was asking if this has in any way affected the daily activities of the people in the Federal Capital Territory. All right, to more stories now. Accreditation, voting and counting of ballot papers have ended across the 17 local council areas of Plateau State. The exercise, which began as early as 8 a.m. on Wednesday in many polling units, came to an end at about 6 p.m. However, many said the election was marred with voter apathy and non-efficiency of the voter verification system developed by the electoral umpire in the state. News Central's Chizoba Anyowe monitored the election and now tells us more.
Election in Plateau State has come and gone. What people are now waiting for is the result of the polls. The grassroots election was held 3 years ago with divergent views and outcomes. With the peace on the plateau being fragile, the exercise was commended by the electorate who spoke with News Central crew.
They said that they had some issues from the local government, but we waited and thank God. So far, they came and, as you can see, people are around. They've been voting for the past 1 hour or more. And I've already casted my vote too.
As you can see, there is no misunderstanding or any form of disagreement between political parties and their agents. So that shows that the process is fair and free.
I didn't know it would be this peaceful, although I think the people are still trickling in, but it's very peaceful. In fact, it didn't take me very long to cast my vote.
Major stakeholders who participated in the just concluded election had this to say.
When we raised those observations with respect to the VVS, we were told that whether online or offline, they were going to work. So the report so far we've gotten from the 17 local governments, right, shows that less than 0.5% of VVS, the app also, is working.
Actually, we have about 24,000 registered voters, but we were given 11,650 ballot papers. But that's not to worry. From experience, we know that somehow this is going to go round. But just in case there's any shortfall in any polling unit, they can always reach us. And that's why we're even going around to monitor and make sure that everything is going all right.
Elections is a process. Logistics has a lot of intricacies with them. But certainly they would have to improve on logistics to ensure that polling units open on time. I've also heard about shortages of staff and the like. All of these they need to improve. I am pretty sure with the professionalism, or I would call it the openness of the commission to want to do better elections, they would look at these elections and learn from it and be able to conduct maybe much better elections in the next cycle.
The electoral umpire has just tasted the waters, as this is his first outing since assuming office as chairman of the State Independent Electoral Commission.
I've not heard anything. We've not seen the report or the general report of all the polling units, but so far so good. The only issues we've heard are late arrival of materials, and it's from my own opinion, is from maybe the new polling units that were created, and the supervisors could not locate the actual polling locations of those polling units, so it became a problem. We are hopeful that in the next election, after our post-election review, we'll look at those things along with even the media. You can come and assist us and to see how we can improve the commission.
Plateau State Governor Caleb Mutfwang assures the electorate that their votes will count.
What we have assured people about this election is that their votes will count. And I'm glad I have just voted. The process is going on seamlessly, as you can see yourselves. And I'm sure that at the end of the day, God willing, the process is quite fast. In fact, faster than the beavers machine that we use in general elections. I believe that accreditation is at the heart of any transparent election. Once accreditation is done seamlessly and people cast their votes, they know that those votes will count. I'm sure that our electoral process will continue to evolve with integrity.
As peaceful as this election has been, it is expected and hoped that members of the public continue to go about their lawful businesses, maintaining peace even after the results are announced. In Jos for News Central, Chizoba Anyui.
Now, the newly deployed Commissioner of Police in Rivers State, Bala Mustafa, on Wednesday embarked on a tour to some local government secretariats in the state for on-spot assessment following violence and arson attacks on some local government area councils on Monday, when the council chairman and councillors assumed offices. Now, some of the local government secretariats visited are Port Harcourt, Obioakpo, Emoha, Ikwere, and Eleme councils. In an interview with journalists at Ikwere Local Government Area Secretariat, he assured the public of their safety and assured residents of the state that police officers were going to investigate the case thoroughly and submit their report to the Inspector General of Police. Our correspondent Austin Azu reports that CP Mustafa was accompanied by members of his management team and senior officers.
Of the situation on ground so far and what had happened to those areas mentioned, and we are taking actions, and we have embarked on full-scale investigation. We have set up a high-powered investigation team under the supervision of the DCCID to be assisted by the Assistant Commissioner of Police at CID. We have seasoned officers who are going to investigate the case thoroughly. Subsequently, we'll submit our report to the Inspector General of Police.
Okay. When you visited some of the secretariats, we saw some of the officials, some of the council chairmen were there, some other council staff were also there, and security personnel. We saw you interacting with them. What was your message to those you met at this various secretariats?
I am preaching the gospel of peace to them. I am a peacemaker. I am an ambassador of peace. I am a represented peace and blessing are for peacemakers. So my message to them is we should collaborate with everybody in the state to ensure safety and security, to maintain law and order, to have peace in the state.
Right, now let's go back to our correspondent in the Federal Capital Territory to speak more on the issue of fuel price hike and the scarcity of it. Joshua Imarai, thanks again for joining us. Now, earlier you gave us an update on what's going on in Abuja. What I want to ask, we haven't exactly heard from the people in charge, and we've gotten speculations that it's because of a last-minute withdrawal of the agreement, from the Dangote refinery. Have we gotten any information on that from your end?
Well, it is quite sad that nothing is coming forth from these people, because one thing that has characterized the increase in fuel price of recent is fuel queues. When the fuel queues come, and there seems to be a jack on the price, nothing is said. We've not heard anything from those in authority or in charge of the entire situation. Everybody is in a dark hole where no information is being given out by these persons, and everybody is clueless about what will happen next. If the fuel price will be increased subsequently, no one knows. If the citizens are just awaiting any more increase, because they've resolved in their mind that considering the subsequent trend in the increase of prices, the fuel price might hit $1 to a liter very soon. So we've not heard anything from them in authority, and we are still awaiting their communication to see what will be the next step concerning the fuel queues, fuel scarcity, and the increase in fuel price.
All right, Joshua, from your own speculations, how much longer before we start seeing a ripple effect on the prices of food and goods and services in general? Because we know that when the price of fuel increases, it affects the prices of food and all of that. So in the FCT, how much longer before we start seeing that?
Well, the case in the FCT is no different from every other state where residents and motorists have to wait for a long time before they buy fuel. This happens to be the case. As you can see here, directly behind me, there's a long queue here in the police station, and the current fuel price is pegged at 1,080 naira. That means when you are buying a 10-liter keg of petroleum product, it will sell for 10,800 naira. So this is just a tip on the iceberg, as residents will say, and they are expecting something worse, or they seem not to be optimistic about the entire situation, considering the fact that this has been the trend over time, and they explain that it might be maintained subsequently.
All right, thank you so much, Joshua Marai, for giving us the updates from the FCT. We go on a quick break now, and when we come back, we'll tell you on World Sight Day, and we'll bring the details after the break. Many thanks for staying with us. Now to health updates. Eyes are often called the mirrors of the soul, but they're much more than that. They are vital to how we engage with the world, influencing how we learn, work, and experience life. Yet, millions of people around the world, including many in Nigeria, are losing the ability to see clearly, with devastating consequences for their health, education, and economic prospects. World Sight Day 2024 on October 10 is a time to renew the commitment to tackling visual impairment, with this year's focus on children. The theme, Love Your Eyes, Protect Your Future, is a powerful reminder that early action can prevent many of the issues that lead to vision loss and blindness. Two more stories. Public healthcare workers under the aegis of the Joint Health Sector Union, JOHESU, have issued a 15-day ultimatum to the federal government to address all lingering issues with the union or risk another round of industrial action. A statement jointly signed by the National Chairman and National Secretary of the union noted that the federal government has not been able to address their demands since June last year, when they suspended their strike, owing to promises from President Bola Tinubu to intervene. The statement highlighted the union's demands to include non-payment of COVID-19 hazard allowance to members, the demand for tax waiver on healthcare workers' allowances, and call for the immediate suspension of the plans to establish an agency that regulates the activities in national health facilities. Now, the Inspector General of Police has condemned violence witnessed during the protests across the country. The IGP made this known as he received a commendation award from the Alumni Association of the University of Lagos over his performance in handling violent protests in the country. The IGP, who received the award from the Abuja chapter of the Alumni Association, was also described as a worthy ambassador of the university.
It is in our tradition as alumni members to tell our members all over the world that wherever they are, they should be perfect ambassadors of the University of Lagos. We don't vandalize. We express our desire as righteous citizens of Nigeria. Every Nigerian has the right to demonstrate, to show demonstration. If you are not happy with anything, you have inalienable right to demonstrate. But in doing that, as an alumnus association, we frown at a situation where people demonstrate and vandalize public institutions, public property, private property. That is not demonstration, it's violence.
During protests, like the chairman said, we were encouraged to express our grievances without resorting to violence or destructive tendencies. We were committed to ensuring that the university infrastructure and properties remain intact throughout the period of protest. In the University of Lagos at that time, fighting was strictly prohibited. In fact, it was a dismissal offense. For any student to raise his hand on another fellow student, you earn dismissal for that. I must say that it's not that we were not having conflicts, but we were encouraged to engage in constructive dialogue and resolve our differences and conflicts amicably.
Now, a federal high court in Lagos has struck out a case by the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria challenging the implementation of the Band A electricity tariff review by the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company and 11 others. A statement by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission on Thursday stated that the judgment was delivered on Monday. In the judgment, the court was said to have considered all the parties' arguments and ruled that man's suit was an abuse of the court process, being premature and without due to regard to the provisions of Section 51 of the Electricity Act 2023. Nigeria's federal government has been tasked to collaborate with young groups in achieving effective climate action for the country. This was during a summit in Abuja, which was aimed at equipping youths with adequate skills to understand the nation's climate action plan and implement same in communities across the country. Amadine Uyi reports.
The summit had in attendance youth-led civil society organizations as they presented their work around climate action and shared their achievements. The session, which is designed to foster collaboration, learning, and mutual support among the groups, aimed at equipping the youths with the skills to understand Nigeria's climate action plan.
This program, which is empowering youth civil society organizations to build stronger communities in Nigeria, is training youth organizations to understand Nigeria's climate action priorities and the role that they can play in the implementation.
Today at this event, what became really clear, one thing that was mentioned every time again, for me was awareness. And I think it's becoming increasingly visible that awareness is a huge factor in the work on climate change. So this means that even though the effects of climate change are quite real, even in Nigeria, and we can see them and experience them, lots of people are not aware that these are actually the effects of climate. So we heard in one presentation that all throughout August there was no rain, and people were wondering why is there no rain, but they were never connecting it to climate change. Because
some of the groups say the summit will place young persons in Nigeria at the core of the nation's climate action plan, making them part of Nigeria's change process. They also called for more collaboration with governments in a bid to tackle problems resulting from climate change.
The good thing about where we are right now is that there's more awareness. Young people are paying more attention. I mean, young people make up 65% of the population in Nigeria. And imagine if we had that population actually raising awareness about climate change, we'll be in a better place come COP29, and which is what this summit is about, getting young people to be involved in the conversation, to be part of the change makers who are going to be there, be part of the policies that would, be in place when Nigeria goes to COP29.
So far, we've been getting little support from the government. We've not gotten the kind of support we want. And you know that, like they say, young people are the bedrock of any improving or growing society. So it means that for us at Enugu, we would like for more partnership with the government, right, to be able to get to the final solution a bit better.
We have a lot of green gas emissions. You see a lot of dump sites, and in those communities you don't have like a specific dump site where that people can come and they can pack it, and also maybe recycle that. So those are one of the problems. We also have a lot of problems in terms of flooding, where we don't have proper drainage systems, and right now we are now also working with Ministry of Environment and to see how we can be able to solve those kind of problems, and these are just local context issues that we are trying to solve.
Participants at the summit say they hope to form a synergy that will help the nation achieve its climate action goals. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
Now, the first set of postage stamps issued for the area known as Nigeria clocked 150 years on the 10th of June 2024. The stamps, popularly referred to as Stamps of Lagos, were released in 1874. The Nigeria Postal Service, NIPOST, have now unveiled 2 new stamps to mark the World Post Day and the 150th anniversary of World Postal Service by the University Postal Union, UPU. News Central's Chidima Ona has more in this report.
In celebration of World Postal Day, Postmaster General and Chief Executive Officer Tola Odeyemi highlighted the transformative impact of digitization on the postal industry. In her address, Odeyemi underscored how advancement in technology have significantly improved postal operations, enhancing both efficiency and service delivery.
So what digitalization has done to the postal service is that it has made the postal services globally to evolve from just looking at letters. We have now evolved into e-commerce, logistics, and digitalized communication. So the only thing it has done is forced us to evolve to meet our customers' needs. Another thing that we've done is we've expanded our services beyond just postal. So we now have e-commerce, we have logistics, we have haulage. We have just launched our financial services. So we've also increased the financial services, and we're also expanding into last mile delivery of government services solutions. So things like NIN registrations. So we're into that now.
Addressing the challenges the Nigerian Postal Service has faced over the years, which have diminished its appeal to many Nigerians, the Postmaster General and other staff highlighted that while the postal system may have struggled to maintain relevance in an increasingly digital world, the cultural and financial value of collecting stamps remains significant.
The hobby of collecting stamp and studying stamp, which is also known as philately, it's a very interesting hobby. In the past, it used to be a pleasure thing, but now it's becoming business, because when you now collect stamp or stamp item or postal stationery, you can now, over time, you can now sell them or swap them for a higher price than you buy them initially.
So stamp collection is just a a passion. It's a form of cultural exchange as well, because people are collecting stamps globally, and you get to learn about world leaders and events globally, because stamps usually commemorate a leader, an event. So it's cultural exchange, as well as, people make money from their hobbies, which a lot of philatelists have been doing for a long time.
As the world becomes increasingly interconnected through digitization, there is growing hope that the postal system will evolve to meet modern needs while retaining its distinctive ability to foster personal connections through traditional letter writing. In Lagos for News Central, I am Chidima Ona.
Coming up, South African police probe death of 5 children. We'll bring you the details of this and many more after the break. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, earlier on, we talked about October 10th being World Sight Day, and this year we're focusing on child vision and eye health. And we had a guest. Unfortunately, we couldn't proceed with him. But joining us now is Dr. Raymond Aguboshim, the current Vice President, West Nigeria Optometric Association. Thank you so much, Dr. Aguboshim, for joining us again.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
News
Central for having me. Thank you. And thank you to our viewers.
It's a pleasure.
At home. Thank you.
All right. Very quickly, Dr. Aguboshim, a lot of times when we talk about poor eye health, many people don't know what the causes are. So can you quickly tell us what causes poor eyesight over time?
Okay, there are several reasons, or a lot of reasons, but let me classify them so we'll be able to understand them a bit more. I'm going to classify them in terms of how they happen. There are some that occur while you're still in the womb. There are some that occur while you're already born, and there are some that occur as you grow older. So in that case, we'll have what we call congenital conditions, which are the ones that happen before you while you're still in the womb. Then there are the ones that happen during childhood, and then the one that happen at full age. So in this context now, anything that happens before you were born, to a reasonable extent, you don't have a role to play in it. But the ones that happen from the time you were born, at the point you're still under the care of your parents and guardians, and then the ones that happen when you're a full adult, you have full responsibilities. So in this context now, all the conditions we are going to look at are all fall in either in one of these categories. For example, we have issues we call refractive error. We have refractive errors. These are the major cause of poor eyesight. We have things like glaucoma, which is the leading cause of irreversible blindness in all ages. And then we have cataract. We then have things like trachoma and the rest of them. But I'm going to focus on these 3 major ones: refractive error, which is, in this context, we're talking about long sight, short sight. In this context, we're calling them myopia, hyperopia, astigmatism, presbyopia. Now, myopia is about short-sightedness. I'm making everything short. Then hyperopia is long-sightedness. And then you have astigmatism. In this context, you see things, but you don't see them the way they are meant to be. You have a different concept of what they are as against what they actually are. And then we have presbyopia, which is an age-related issue that usually happens to people from their mid-ages into their old age. In that context, they have difficulties reading tiny prints. On the other hand, we have glaucoma, which I mentioned earlier on, that is the leading cause of irreversible blindness. In this context, the person can actually go blind 100%, and there's nothing you can do about it. So in that context, we look at what can you do to even prevent it from manifesting, and then we also talk about cataract and the rest of them. So I'm highlighting the 3 major ones: refractive error, glaucoma, and cataract. Thank you.
Okay, so a lot of times, many people find themselves caught up in the web of using their gadgets, their laptops, and even for workers like us, for example, exposed to so much light in the studio. How can one prevent poor vision, having been exposed to all of these things?
Okay, I'm going to still make it a general thing. Let me just not restrict it to just people in the studio and things like that. For example, this year, we're talking about the World Sight Day today, and we're focusing on kids. Now, I'll use kids as a template to extend to any other person out there. So you're talking about issues that could lead to poor eyesight. You're using the case study of lighting in the studio. There are things you could do. First of all, you could reduce your screen time. Most times we encourage people to reduce your screen time. The era of paper pen is beginning to phase away to the era of computers, phones, and everything. We now do everything online. But then it comes with its own challenge. You need to actually be online. Then anything that can be done outside of the net is very encouraged. For children, for example, as we're talking about today's case now, we encourage them to actually do more outdoor things. Gone are the days when children play on the school fields. Now everything is done online, which is not helping because we are looking at the global statistics, which is telling us that about 450 million children across the world have significant eye health issues. And if care is not taken, by the time we are in 2050, which is barely 26 years from now, half of the world population will develop a very significant eye health issue. So in terms of controlling this, we are mapping out strategies. One of them, you're talking about the studio, is like I'm wearing a prescription now. This is not just a plain prescription. There's something we call the anti-blue device. In this case, it helps manage the blue rays that come to you from digital devices, from the workplaces. There is also the photochromic lenses. This help control the light that hits your eyes. And then, above this all, regular eye exam is a factor that must be considered by everybody because it is in this regular eye exam that you'll be able to note if there is something threatening your vision, and then appropriate technical professional actions can be taken on that. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Raymond Aguboshim, thank you so much for joining us and shedding more light on eyesight and the causes of poor eyesight. Thank you once again. Now to more stories. The police have initiated 5 inquest dockets after 5 children in Naledi, Soweto, died allegedly after eating snacks from a local spaza shop. Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi has committed a task team to investigate the deaths of the children, providing a deadline of 2 weeks for the post-mortem results to be concluded. Exactly a year ago, just 2 streets away from where the 5 children lived, 2 families had lost their children after they also consumed biscuits bought from the local spaza shop. There has been outrage in the community, with some residents shutting down their businesses, followed by days of looting and protests. The tenant of the spaza shop has since fled after angry community members looted and threatened to burn it down on Sunday. Earlier, we're joined on the news to discuss this by Lesego Mahalung, the head of research, Not In My Name International from Gauteng.
A typical township, typical, very congested, very clustered, you know. In one very clustered street, you find at least 3 tuck shops. They are small, often renting within people's residential yards. And these yards are not that big, but people will give them like a little bit of space to rent out. And in South Africa, you would typically have Ethiopians as people who will lease out the spaces, Somalians also as well. In one street in the township, you would find like 3 shops, you know, very clustered, you know. They sell as much as they could sell, and they almost even become a convenience store, you know. And given, of course, the affordability of many people in the township, these really do end up being their primary source of goods, you know. Many of them are not as hygienic as they should be, and nowhere in competition to the retail big chain stores that you find further from the people. This would mean that people would have to travel from them. So for most people, they would have to depend on these spaza shops that are very nearby to them and very much part of their community.
You're still live with us on the news. We go on a short break now, and when we come back, vote tallying begins in tense Mozambique elections. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, more stories. The Sala de Paz, a group of electoral observer organizations in Mozambique, have expressed concerns about the apparent lack of conditions for counting votes in the general elections that took place on Wednesday in Mozambique due to the lack of light. Wednesday's general elections in Mozambique are being marked by accusations of irregularities on the part of the opposition, with no significant incidents reported and observers highlighting popular participation. Meanwhile, a report from the My Integrated Electoral Consortium, a civil society platform for electoral observation, claimed that 90% of the polling stations observed opened on time, but there were other stations that suffered delays due to a lack of voting material. Now, Daniel Chapo, the newcomer politician, is a favorite to win the elections, as political analysts believe he has the advantage of Frelimo's incumbency power. Joining us on the news now is Whitney Sabino, Peace Room representative from Maputo. Thank you so much, Whitney, for joining us.
Thank you for this opportunity. It's a pleasure to join you and share some incidents of our election.
An absolute pleasure as well. Now, Whitney, how would you assess the overall conduct of the elections yesterday? Were there any significant improvement or deteriorations compared to the previous elections that we've had?
So overall, yesterday's election process was relatively peaceful and orderly, especially when compared to the 2019 elections, where we saw more incidents of violence and severe numbers of deaths and injuries from the opening of the polling stations until the moment of counting. So this year was relatively more calm than 2019 general elections. And in terms of improvements, we noted with some enthusiasm that there were great participation of women and young people as voters, but also as scrutineers of the process. And we also had a positive action, positive engagement of the police forces during the various stages of the process yesterday, which we believe facilitated a lot the process in terms of maintaining a peaceful environment around the polling stations. In terms of deteriorations, there are some significant incidents, such as the delay in the opening of the polling stations due to lack of technical and logistical conditions, according to the National Electoral Commission. And because of that, some polling stations only opened by 10 a.m., 11 a.m., when they were supposed to open by 7 p.m.
All right,
in
Whitney, apologies.
Center in Mozambique.
Okay, I just wanted to quickly ask, you mentioned the delay earlier, and I wanted to know if the delay affected the vote counting process.
Yes, it affected the vote counting process because the polling stations were supposed to close latest by 6 p.m. Until 9 p.m. We still had voters who didn't vote, and it has delayed the process of preliminary counting.
All right, Whitney.
That affected the process.
Okay. All right, Whitney, thank you so much. That's the much that we can take now because of our time. But thank you for telling us more about the upcoming elections. And we're hoping to see how that turns out. Sorry, the ongoing elections, rather. And we're hoping to see how the vote counting turns out.
Thank you.
Now, Mozambique began counting votes on Wednesday at the close of 10th presidential and parliamentary elections expected to allow the ruling Frelimo party to extend its 49 years in power. Vote tallying started shortly after polling stations closed at 6 p.m. local time, with initial results expected in about 2 weeks. Now, two of the main opposition leaders have already warned against electoral fraud in the southern African nation, plagued by high levels of poverty and jihadist violence in the north. Outgoing President Filipe Nyusi, who is stepping down after a 2-term limit, has called for continued calm and patience after a day of voting with no major incidents reported. And that's all on the news at this hour. But before we go, let's take a look at some of our major stories. Now, we told you that reactions trailed NNPCL increase in petrol prices at filling stations nationwide as NLC rejects price hike. We also mentioned that Governor Mutfwang assured residents of Plateau that their votes will count. And finally, we told you that vote counting started in Mozambique general elections as opposition warned against fraud. You can watch News Central live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Blessings Mosugu.